The annual Bilderberg meeting, taking place in Turin, Italy, this weekend, is bringing together key deep state actors and potential useful idiots from across North America and Western Europe to discuss surging threats to their own agenda and power. Among the many topics of discussion, the globalist insiders and potential collaborators invited to this year's meeting will focus on growing populist movements in Europe and what the network described in a press release as the post-truth world, presumably a reference to the fact that their propaganda organs are no longer able to control the narrative. But it may be too late to save their globalist agenda. Like most years, over 130 insiders in business, government, military, foundations, banking, central banking, royalty, academia, technology, journalism, intelligence, and more will attend the 2018 secret meeting. Even a top Catholic official, Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin, will be there this year as an emissary of controversial left-wing Pope Francis, a fervent supporter of globalism and radical environmentalism. Also in attendance will be numerous senior leaders of international institutions including NATO and the United Nations. A number of prime ministers will be there, too. Aside from populism and the post-truth world, subjects listed on Bilderberg's website supposedly to be discussed at this year's meeting include the inequality challenge, the future of work, artificial intelligence, the United States ahead of the midterm elections, free trade, which for globalists generally means undermining sovereignty and self-government using transnational governance under the guise of trade, U.S. world leadership, Russia, quantum computing, Saudi Arabia and Iran, and current events. How closely the actual agenda will conform to what was announced publicly is not clear. While the secrecy-obsessed globalists pretend that the meetings are simply for informal and private discussions, the reality is quite different. In fact, more than a few Bilderberg attendees have publicly boasted that the off-record meetings are used to help set policy worldwide, potentially in violation of the U.S. Logan Act. As far as American attendees are concerned, Bilderberg critics suggest every year that attendees may be violating federal law, though there have been no prosecutions thus far. Numerous other attendees have admitted publicly that furthering globalism is the goal, though they generally claim it is for humanity's benefit rather than their own. Establishment and anti-establishment analysts have suggested that the 2016 election of President Donald Trump has drastically shifted the agenda and the discourse at Bilderberg. The War Room show on InfoWars, which featured longtime Trump advisor Roger Stoney, declared that the Bilderberg meeting's primary concern would be destroying Donald Trump. As NBC put it, meanwhile, Trump's arrival in the White House has thrown out the old way of doing politics and heralded a renegade style of politics. Either way, there is no doubt that Trump will be a hot topic of conversation in Turin this year. While some members of Trump's cabinet have attended Bilderberg in the past, the reason for potential Bilderberg hostility to Trump is not mysterious. In addition to openly speaking out against globalism, the U.S. President has made major dents in the globalist agenda, including announcing a U.S. withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP), the United Nations Paris Agreement on Climate, and the UN Educational, Cultural, and Scientific Organization (UNESCO), whose chief is at Bilderberg today. And that was just during Trump's first year in office. Considering that globalism is the ideology that unites virtually all Bilderberg attendees, it is no surprise that they would be alarmed. In 2001, former British Chancellor of the Exchequer and Bilderberg bigwig Denis Healey told the far-left UK Guardian that it was a little exaggerated, but not wholly unfair, to say that the outfit's overall goal was global government. Those of us in Bilderberg felt we couldn't go on forever fighting one another for nothing, he claimed, as if the globalists were simply destroying nationhood and self-government for the benefit of humanity. So we felt that a single community throughout the world would be a good thing. By community, globalists really mean government. After all, the European Union was a community before the full-blown superstate was openly announced. As far as the post-truth world is concerned, the term was selected by Oxford English Dictionary as the word of the year for 2016. The dictionary behemoth defined it as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. Basically, deep state globalists outraged that Americans no longer believe their propaganda organs have decided to unleash the lie that people no longer value objective facts, as defined by their propaganda organs. In reality, though, Americans and people around the world have simply woken up in massive numbers to the fact that the establishment media is not a reliable source of objective facts. Instead, the deep state-affiliated media, CNN, New York Times, The Economist, Washington Post, CBS, NBC, ABC, and so on, have largely become a propaganda machine for the establishment's chosen narratives and policies. Polls show less than a third of Americans have even a fair amount of trust in the press, with less than 15% of Republicans having any trust in the press even before Trump was elected. Their credibility continues to plunge. In short, the deep state's propaganda machine has lost much of its value, hence the rating of Americans and humanity for allegedly not caring about facts. What tricks deep state insiders may come up with remains to be seen. At some point, even reverse psychology could be employed, with globalist media outlets pretending to oppose things the deep state actually supports and wants Americans to support. But 2016 election proved one thing, at least: the mischaracterized mainstream media no longer has the ability to control the narrative, public discourse, or the political process. In terms of where Americans stand, the national press is on the fringe, and everybody knows it. It is also no surprise that Bilderberg is concerned about the rise of European populism. Indeed, in Italy, where the meeting is taking place behind heavy taxpayer-funded security, voters just delivered a crushing blow to the establishment's parties. In their place, Italians elected populists who vowed to take on the globalist EU, deport hundreds of thousands of migrants, and upend the political establishment. Similar trends are taking place across Europe. In Sweden, the anti-immigration party recently became the largest political party based on public support in polls. And in the United Kingdom, voters decided to leave the increasingly totalitarian European Union altogether. Meanwhile, top EU bigwigs, many of whom are at Bilderberg, are increasingly out of touch with reality and the people they seek to rule over. It is so bad that the EU's top official, unelected EU President Jean-Claude Juncker, went to Trier, Germany, this week to celebrate communist conspirator Karl Marx, whose ideology resulted in governments slaughtering more than 100 million of their own people in just the last century. A former Soviet dictator referred to the EU as the new European Soviet. Bilderberg luminaries, meanwhile, have publicly boasted of the network's crucial role in imposing the superstate on Europeans. Now the scheme is falling apart. The Americans involved raised concerns, too. One of the attendees whose invitation has sparked serious questions is Democrat Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper. In the past, no-name political figures invited to Bilderberg have gone on to much higher positions very quickly. Then Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, for example, attended the summit in 1991 as a virtually unknown official. Soon after, he became President of the United States, with powerful backing of his campaign from the deep state. Then Congressman Gerald Ford attended before becoming President too. Then Member of Parliament Tony Blair went before becoming British Prime Minister. And virtually all EU presidents have attended the meetings before being appointed. Hickenlooper was one of this year's 131 elitists, and attendance is significant, explained Steve Bias, a professor of history and government at Randall University and a writer for The New American. So, Hickenlooper is someone to watch, for sure. With Hickenlooper's support for gun control in Colorado, though, Bilderberg is likely to have a very tough time selling him to American voters. Especially with the credibility of their media outlets in the toilet. Indeed, any potential scheming by Bilderbergers to advance the career of Hickenlooper or anyone else could backfire monumentally. with awareness growing and the American people increasingly disillusioned or even outraged with the establishment and its perpetual attacks on freedom, borders, and self-government, association with deep state organizations such as Bilderberg, the Council on Foreign Relations, and others is rapidly becoming a serious liability to those who aspire to political office. After all, Trump campaigned on a platform of draining the swamp and stopping globalism, and he won. Today, 3/4 of Americans say in polls that they are concerned about the deep state. Of course, Bilderberg is not the only organization that makes up the deep state behind the deep state. Other secretive outfits include the Skull and Bones secret society that Bush and Kerry belong to, the occultist Bohemian Grove, the Trilateral Commission, the Globalist CFR, and many more. Meanwhile, plenty of Bilderberg attendees remain largely clueless. Lenin might have called them useful idiots, and receive invitations merely to see where they stand and to see if their influence can be co-opted to help promote globalism and Bilderberg goals. Bilderberg discussions may remain secret for a time, potentially even years. But it does seem clear that Bilderberg and other deep state institutions are becoming concerned about growing public awareness of their agenda, and increasing hostility to it among Europeans and Americans. Everybody can do their part in preserving liberty and self-government. A good place to start is becoming informed and educating others about the shadowy forces such as Bilderberg bosses that would rule humanity if they could. Sunshine is an excellent disinfectant. Image, FBXX via iStock. Getty Images Plus. Alex Newman, a foreign correspondent for The New American, is normally based in Europe but has lived all over the world. Follow him on Twitter at AlexNewman_you or on Facebook. He can be reached at this email address as being protected from spam bots. You need JavaScript enabled to view it. Related articles. Has Hickenlooper been anointed by the elites? Deep state converges at Bilderberg meeting. 2018 top Trump officials attend Globalist Bilderberg summit. Why? Deep state behind the deep state, CFR, trilaterals. Bilderberg's Trump victory proves mainstream media is globalist fringe follow the Rothschild, Soros, and Rockefeller money secret societies. Skull.